Okay. All right, everyone. So thank you very much for joining me. This is going to be, like I said, a refresher for a lot of you, but when it comes to magic in particular, I think that we all need these refreshers from time to time. I know I certainly do, because even if you live this life day to day, there are aspects that we're going to talk about today that can get you kind of tripped up and make the ability to do magic more difficult for you. And seeing as how we are in the beginning of a Mercury retrograde, I figured this would be a good time to go ahead and give that refresher. All right. So first, I want to talk a little bit about models of magic. Again, just as a refresher, there are several different models of magic, and which one you prescribe to is not really that important. It's which one works for you. So when I say models of magic, I mean we could talk about the mind model, and this is the model in which your belief would be that the mind has a direct effect on reality. There's the spirit model, which is by far the most widespread and popular model of magic, and that is the model in which you are working with and through spirits to achieve magical results. There's also the psychological model, which is more about reframing your reality and your perspective in order to see and experience reality in a different way without really affecting it on the physical level. Then we've also got the simulation theory, which is like the newest model of magic, where you could see magic as more of hacking reality than the traditional sense of what doing magic is. So again, it doesn't really matter which of these models you like best. Okay. What really does matter is that you believe that magic is possible. Okay. That is a prerequisite to the ability to do magic, and we'll get into exactly why. Now, there are many other models of magic. Those are just some examples. Okay. But again, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to find the objectively correct belief system. You have to find a belief system that works for you, that is that you're in tune with, that feels right to you. Okay, and then we'll talk about the different modalities of magic. So we've got three primary modalities of magic, and that's receptive. Receptive magic would be to gather information, to obtain wisdom that you otherwise didn't have. So this is divination, right? This is astrology and tarot and throwing bones, all those sorts of things, where you are gathering information from your environment. Then we have connective magic, and that is connecting to spirit. So this is directly related to the spirit model, but even if you don't believe in spirits as objective beings, you could be connecting to the universe, or connecting to nature, or connecting to whatever unseen forces you wish to connect to, connecting to the unseen aspects of reality. And then finally, we have operative magic, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Operative magic is causing changes to occur in your environment. So operative magic is spell casting, and spell casting is what we're going to be getting into today. Okay, so a lot of people might already be thinking, okay, what the hell? What do you mean spell casting? What do you mean magic? That stuff's not real. Okay, wrong. And I'll tell you just from an objective standpoint, and I'll explain it in a couple different ways. But the first thing I want to talk about is a guy named J.B. Rhine. He was a scientist in the 1930s, and one day a gambler walks into his office and basically says, "Doctor, I got to tell you something crazy. I don't think you're going to believe me, but I can control the outcome of dice throws." Now, J.B. Rhine was a real scientist, so instead of just laughing the guy off, he said, "Okay, let's test this." And he performs a series of experiments. And what he finds is that this guy is actually able to bring up a particular number on the dice, 3 to 6% more often than should be statistically probable. Okay, so he really is having an effect on what number is coming up in these dice. And he repeats this experiment with many other people. And he finds that there's nothing special about this first guy, that anyone can do this. So then he starts looking for, okay, what's causing this? And he rules out anything physical. The guy doesn't have a special technique of throwing. There's no outside force acting upon the dice. So then he starts looking into, okay, is there a spiritual component to this? And he tests people across different belief systems and finds that they're all able to do this. So he figures, okay, this has got to have something to do with your nervous system. This is something that the mind or the body is doing, without direct control necessarily, or at least not direct physical control from the participant. And so what he finds is that what really affects the outcome of these dice throws is how involved the participant is. Are they excited about doing it? Are they focused on the number that they want to come up? All right. And there's nothing special about the numbers. It could be a 3, it could be a 6, it could be a 9. It doesn't matter. What he found was that the moment the participant loses interest, when they get bored, it stops working. The more interested they are, the more involved they are, the better it works. Okay, now this is insanely important to everyone out there who practices magic for whatever reason. When you get bored with your magical practice, it will stop working. Yeah, this is so important because as much as everyone wants to deny that this happens, everybody goes through phases of time when they're bored with or feeling apathetic towards their magical practice. And this could be because you are depressed. It could be because you've got other things that you need to focus on. It could be for any number of reasons, but it is so crucially important to remember that you have to stay excited about this or it will not work. And this has been proven in a laboratory. Okay. Now, again, with the JB Ryan experiments, he had a success rate of approximately 6%. The guy was able to, and across participants, they were able to change the outcome of the dice by 3 to 6%. Okay, and these weren't people who were trying to do magic. This is just an experiment with random participants focusing on a number and trying to get it to come up in a dice roll. Now, if you gamble, don't go thinking that you can walk into a casino and hit the dice that you want to hit every single time, because another important factor in magic is probability. Okay. But if you play Dungeons and Dragons, this could be incredibly useful if you really want to roll those D20s. All right. Now, in Dungeons and Dragons, the consequences aren't nearly as severe as they would be in a casino. Okay. So just the point of all this is just to establish that this is a real phenomenon that has been tested over and over and over and over again. Okay. And all we're doing here is scratching the bare surface of what magic is, but we're trying to establish a baseline here. You can change the outcomes of situations in your life at a minimum of 3 to 6% just by staying engaged, staying focused on the outcome that you want. Okay. So now I want to talk about some of the other prerequisites again. You have to believe this works. If you don't believe it works, how are you going to generate the necessary amount of excitement about it working? Right? This is why you're going to read in every book of magic that you've ever read that the moment you start doubting your magic, it will start working. Because it's the same thing as getting bored with it. It's actually much worse. You can believe in magic and still get bored with it and it will stop working. But if you don't believe it works, it's not going to work. Flat out, period. It's not going to work. Okay? That's very, very important. Even if you've been practicing magic your whole life, the moment you start to have doubt, and again, people will deny this, but everyone goes through what we call a crisis of faith every once in a while. It happens. This is a part of the human experience. You will go through, and I don't care if you've been practicing for 20 years, you will at some point go through at least small or large crises of faith where you start to wonder, maybe this doesn't work. Why isn't it working for me right now? And if you continue down that way of thinking, it will never work again, possibly. All right. So you've got to avoid this. It's very, very, very important. You've got to, re-engage with lectures and books and things that get you excited. And that's why I'm giving this lecture tonight, because I know that all of you are here have already heard me say all this stuff. But we're going to say it again because you need the reminder and I need the reminder, because we have to stay excited about what we're doing if we want it to work. All right. So prerequisites. You have to believe that it works. And ideally, you're very excited about it working. Okay. But what system you believe is causing it to happen is way less important. So it doesn't matter if you're Christian or Hindu or pagan or whatever. It doesn't matter if you think aliens are doing it. It just doesn't matter. Okay. Now, that's a whole other conversation. A different lecture we'll have at a different time about spirits. But what we're going to be talking about today is the magic that comes from you, right? So this is spell casting coming from you, which I would call spell casting, and I would call magic done through spirits. That's a petition. You're asking for something that's more akin to prayer. They're two different things. Today, we're talking about spell casting, and that is magic that comes from you to cause a direct change in your environment. So we've established our baseline and we've established the prerequisites. Okay. So now let's talk about what it takes on top of those prerequisites. So if you look at the first image that I put in the chat there, which is the star, there are 5 points on that pentagram. And we're going to talk about these 5 points that you need to hit in order to be really effective with your magic. Okay, number 1 is desire. We've kind of already talked about this. That's excitement, right? Desire and excitement they go hand in hand. But desire is a very, very, very powerful emotion. And it's one that really trips a lot of people up. There's a lot of people, I mean, maybe even most people, who struggle to say, I want blank, whatever it is, because there are intense feelings of shame and guilt and disbelief and all these other things that get piled on top the moment you start talking about what you want for yourself in life, because we are programmed by society, by religion, by all these factors to not be selfish, right? It's nonsense. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. You have to want things for yourself. You have to always want a better life for yourself. You have to want to accomplish, you have to want to achieve your goals, and you have to want it really bad. The more you want it, the better. Okay? There's nothing wrong with this. And if you need, help to get past those feelings of guilt and shame, then get the help that you need, right? And there's a number of ways you can do that. Again, just engaging with this community is a great way to do that. It's okay to want things for yourself. In fact, it's necessary, because if we're going to talk about this whole ideology of service to self versus service to others, which I'm writing about in my book, it's completely absurd. Okay, you are no good to anybody if you can't take care of yourself. Right? If you are unable to take care of yourself first, how are you going to take care of anyone else? It's not only is it not possible, it's actually, it's a kind of passing the buck along, right? Oh, I don't worry about myself. I just worry about everyone else. Okay. Well, you can't drop your weight that you're pulling to go help someone else pull their weight. It doesn't help. It doesn't help the overall situation, right? You have to pull your own weight first, and then you can help other people. So, get this idea out of your head that you should never be doing magic for yourself. You should be doing magic for yourself first, and then for others. Okay, always. Again, because desire is a key ingredient. It is necessary for successful magic. Now I want to talk about the two really practical aspects of this, and that's timing and probability. Okay. And when I say timing, there are many degrees of magical timing, but I want to talk about the most basic one. You have to do the spell with time for it to happen. You can't do a spell for something that you needed to happen yesterday. You need to think ahead and do things in time that give them time in physical reality for them to actually happen. Okay. And that could be, some things take 2 weeks to happen. Some things take 30 seconds. The dice is a great example of magic that takes virtually no timing. There's no timing between the time the dice leaves the hand and when it hits the green, whatever that stuff is. So the timing is incredibly important. You have to think it through. If you're trying to get a new job, for example, you want to start doing your magic a fair bit of time in advance, because there's an interview process and all these things that have to happen that take time. Okay. If you are getting pulled over and you don't want to get a ticket, you got to do that magic between the time the cop pulls you over and the time he gets to your window. That's how much time you've got. All right. So you got to think about how much time you've got. And then once you get that down, you can start thinking about timing your magic along with the moon, or along with planetary hours, or even planetary minutes. There's all these different degrees of magical timing, but you do have to incorporate timing into your magic. Don't wait till the last second if you don't have to. Okay. All right. Next is probability. Do not waste your time trying to win the lottery with magic. Okay. Probability is incredibly important. So in the dice experiment, you're able to change the outcome of the dice roll by approximately 3 to 6%. That's not doing magic at all. That's just focus. Now you add all these other things that we're talking about on top of it, and let's say that magic has the ability, which is insane, right, to change the outcomes of situations in your life by up to 20%. That's wild, right? That's incredible. But if you do a spell and you become 20% more likely to win the lottery, you're still going to fucking lose. You're not going to win the lottery. Okay. If you buy 1,000 lottery tickets, you're not going to win the lottery. Don't do this. This isn't how magic works. And people who waste their time with this, trying to accomplish this kind of thing with magic, lose faith and get bitter and walk away. Right. And they don't use magic for what it should be for, which is pushing you over the edge. So let's say you had a 45% chance of something going the way you wanted to, and you add that 20% on top of that, right? Now it's 60-40 in your favor. That's what magic is really for. And that's incredible. And it's amazing. And you should be doing it all the time, because there's a lot of things that we want that just won't transpire if we're not adding that extra bit of energy and focus and intention on top of it. Okay. So it's incredibly important. But here's the thing. You can do this for yourself in a way that is very positive, or you can do it for yourself in a way that is very negative. Okay. Be careful what you wish for. Do not spend your life focused on what you do not want to happen. Yeah, one of my students gave an incredible example, an incredible explanation of this the other day, and I want to share it with all of you because it was so brilliant. She said, "This is what it's like. Let's say you're in a foreign country and you don't speak the language, and you go to a restaurant. You go to a nice restaurant. You're going to order dinner, and you're allergic to shellfish. Okay, you're so focused on your allergy because you don't want to die, that instead of telling the waiter, pointing to what you do want to eat, you keep pointing at the shellfish because you don't want it. You're trying to say, this will kill me. Don't give me this. But you're pointing at it over and over and over again. Well, the waiter doesn't speak your language, doesn't know what you're saying. He just sees you pointing at the shellfish very enthusiastically. They're going to bring you a dish with shellfish and you're going to die. Don't do this. Don't do it. Okay. Now, the reality is that a tremendous amount of people are walking around doing this all day, every day. They are intensely focused on exactly what they're afraid of. So what do you think is going to happen? You're going to manifest exactly what you're afraid of. Don't do this, because it works both ways. Okay? All right. So don't hex yourself. Okay? Use magic to give yourself an advantage in life. This is what it's for. Use it to give your friends and family and everyone else an advantage too. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying don't leave yourself out. Make sure that you're doing magic for yourself and for others, however you want to do that, right? But having goals is a huge part of staying excited. And you should be using magic to achieve your goals. This is how you're going to generate that constant excitement about it, because nothing gets you more excited than having a desire, turning that desire into a goal, and then achieving the goal. It's amazing, and it feels really good, and it's going to supercharge your nervous system, and you're going to get better at doing this. And by getting better at doing this, you're able to make more and more significant changes for yourself and others. So it's crucial that you keep doing this. And a lot of students that I have will tell me, well, it works. My magic works when I do it for other people, but never for me. That the reason for that is the shame and guilt and doubt and all that stuff that gets piled on when you start to say, I want this for me. You cannot will your way, and we'll talk about will in a second. You cannot will your way out of these feelings. Like, you have to really examine them and reason with yourself and work through them and remove them, because they are blocks that you have. Okay. So back to the star. We talked about probability. We talked about timing. So now we're going to talk about will. Okay. Will is similar to desire, but whereas desire is I want something, will is projecting it out into the universe, saying this is going to happen. I am creating this. My will is for this thing to occur. Okay. So where desire is more receptive, or is a feeling of receptiveness, then will is projective. Will is putting it out there. And that's where the spell casting really comes in. Okay. This is like the essence of spellcasting, is to project your will out into the universe. Now, developing a strong will come from developing strong desires. You have to really, really, really want something. You have to want it so bad that you generate that force of will that you're able to project that out into the universe. Is another reason why desire is positive. Desire is a good thing. All right. And then lastly, we're going to talk about symbolism. And this is where like the really magical kind of stuff starts to come in. Because in magic, any type of magic, regardless of which tradition we're talking about, there's an incredible amount of symbolism involved. So what's that all about? Well, you have two brain hemispheres. Okay, you have your left and your right, and this is a massive, massive oversimplification. Okay, I'm just acknowledge that, but like let's basically say that your left brain hemisphere is conscious and your right brain hemisphere is subconscious. Right. Well, again, massive oversimplification, but for the sake of what we're talking about here, the subconscious mind is vastly more powerful than the conscious mind. But the subconscious mind is not where your speech center is. It's not the conscious part of you. It's not the part of you that you're aware of. That's why it's subconscious, right? It's the part of you you have far less access to, but it's the more powerful part of you. So what you want to do is take that will and that desire, and you want to use them to inform the subconscious as to what you need it to do. Because the subconscious is really what's controlling all of this. Just like the subconscious controls when you blink and your heart rate and your hair growing and your fingernails growing and all the things that make you a living person, you're not doing that. You're not sitting there thinking, oh man, I better remember to flow my blood through my body. It just does it. Your subconscious mind is doing all this. It's a machine. It runs on, it's automated. Okay. When you put instructions into that automated system to generate a certain outcome, then you have real power. If you try and do it just with that conscious part of your mind, you're going to have some effect. But when you get it into the subconscious part of your mind, now it becomes way, way, way more powerful. And we do this through symbolism, because that subconscious part of your mind speaks the language of symbolism and sounds and emotions and colors and symbols, right? There are many symbols out there that are very, very, very powerful. There are symbols that are powerful to you that you are completely unaware of. Okay. Corporate logos are a great example of this. You see a corporate logo. I've never in my life purchased a pair of Nikes. All right. This is not the kind of shoes I like to wear, but I know that logo 100%. I see it and I'm like, that Nikes, I know what that is. Right. It's burned into my brain forever. This is true with all, not all, but many, many, many corporate logos. Well, this is also true of things that you don't have so much conscious awareness of, and they're programmed into your mind at a very, very young age. It could even be genetic memory, and there's symbols that are religious symbols, or geometric symbols, or symbols that are correspondences. Okay. Now, there are certain correspondences that are programmed into us, and I believe personally that this has a lot to do with genetic memory. So here's an example. Why are children afraid of the dark? Why are people afraid of the dark in general? Right? Why is darkness scary to human beings? Because there was a time thousands of years ago when darkness meant your life is in danger, and that's a fact. When the sun goes down, the monsters come out. Okay. There was a time in our history when darkness meant danger on a very, very, very literal way. And that is still flowing through your nervous system. So just darkness as a symbol is incredibly powerful. And that's just an example of how this kind of stuff works. So, symbolism is incredibly powerful. And there are universal symbols that we call correspondences, colors that make you think of certain things, etc. So if you live in America, you most likely associate the color green with money. If you live in Canada like me, then we don't have one color of money. It's all kinds of weird colors. But for Americans, color green means money, right? For the rest of the world, it's probably the color gold that means money, right? So that's another example of a correspondence. So you have cultural correspondences, and then you have personal correspondences. And personal correspondences are cool because you get to decide what they are. They're things that are special to you. Do you have a lucky rabbit's foot? I hope not, personally, because I don't think that's the kind of thing people do anymore. And I wouldn't want to carry a dead part of an animal around with me. But for example, you have a lucky hat. Do you have a shirt? Do you have anything, right? It's something from your childhood, maybe. Anything. You can enchant any kind of item just by deciding it's lucky and forming an emotional attachment to it. You decide that this item is lucky, it becomes lucky. It's a personal correspondence. This is why sigil magic in particular is incredibly effective, because you are designing a personal correspondence every time you do it. Runes, the pentagram, which is kind of universal throughout magical practices, all kinds of symbols are incredibly powerful. But when you decide what they are for yourself and you make that connection and it's personal, they become even more powerful. So those are our 5 ingredients for successful spellcasting. Okay, we've got desire, timing, probability, will, and symbolism. And when you put the 5 together, you can design a ritual, a magical ritual, which incorporates all of these elements and allows you to effectively press your will out of you and into the universe, and it will come back to you like a boomerang. And again, it's not going to, you're not able to cast a spell today to get a Ferrari tomorrow. It's not going to happen. But you can cast a will today, cast a spell today to, let's say, increase your income by 50% over the next 12 months. Absolutely, you can do that. There's no reason that every one of us shouldn't do it right now. Okay. But remember, you have to stay excited about this. That's really the hardest part. Staying excited about your magical practice is the hardest part about it, because not all of your spells are going to work. This is just a fact. Even if you've been doing this for 25 years, I've been doing this for 25 years and sometimes my spells don't work because probability was against me, or I just wasn't enthused enough about it at the time, or any other number of factors that it could be, right? This is a reason why having community is very important. By staying engaged, by continuing to read books about magic, anything you can do to keep yourself excited about doing it, and to have a daily practice that you don't let just, fall to the side. Because again, your enemies in any magical practice are doubt and apathy. Those are the worst things that can happen to your magical practice. Doubt and apathy. All right. So let's talk now about what's really, really, really going on here. And, if you know me, you know that I don't like to explain magic in a way that isn't grounded in something real. So the model of magic that I am enthusiastic about, the model of magic that I prescribe to, is based in theoretical physics. Now, if you look at the second image, that is again, a massive oversimplification, but it's a visual representation of the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. And here's basically what this says, all right? Rather than your mind or spirit or whatever causing changes to occur in your environment, which seems impossible because it would have to change the entire universe, essentially. What's going to happen when you do magic, when you cast spells, is that you are going to navigate yourself, your consciousness, through the nearly infinite parallel realities or parallel timelines into the parallel reality or timeline in which the thing that you wanted to occur is already occurring. Because in the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, we can understand that all possibilities exist simultaneously. All outcomes, all possibilities, okay? They exist simultaneously, and you are navigating yourself through these possibilities. So if you look at the chart there, you can see that there's it says you, right? And then you move up that scale as you do magic. You move up that y-axis, in awareness and connection through, what we could call fate, which is maybe the most deterministic outcome for your life, which is to say the most probable, right? And that's kind of scary, right? The most probable outcome for your life is that red line at the bottom. That's not where you want to be. And you move yourself through these probabilities up until that purple line up at the top there, which you're going to call destiny, which is the best or highest probable outcome for your life. And, I didn't depict it on this chart, but you can also move down in the scale, and you definitely don't want to do that, right? You want to move up. You want to move up that y-axis by staying connected, staying aware, staying excited, staying focused on your goals, and using everything that we're talking about today and everything else that there is to magic, because there's, like I said, we're barely scratching the surface. But to use these to move yourself up that scale to a better outcome. All right. That's what we're doing. That's what magic really is. It is just navigating consciousness through the infinite possibilities to land on the one that you want, just like you throw that dice and you want to roll a 6 and you roll a 6. Okay. That's it. That's what we're doing. You're staying focused on what you want in order to make it happen. Magic is just adding extra steps on top of that that keep increasing those odds. So let's say from 6% to 20%. It's way better to have a 20% increase in your ability to manifest the outcome that you want than 6%. But even 6% is pretty incredible. And the great thing about this, the most amazing thing about it, is that it informs you that you're not just subject to whatever happens to you every day. You, even if it's just like 6%, 6 to 20%, let's say, are in control of the outcomes of the situations in your life. Right. And that's on top of the things you can do in the everyday mundane world. And let's talk about that for a moment, too, because this is another issue that people have with magic and a misunderstanding. You cannot cast a spell to get a new job and then not apply for any jobs. It does not work that way. All right. You no one's just going to randomly call you and offer you the job of your dreams. It's incredibly improbable. So you want to increase the probability of the outcome that you want in every way that you possibly can through normal mundane means, and then add that magic on top of it to give yourself that boost, that 10 to 20 whatever percent boost. And now you're far more likely to get what you want in life. And that's what it's all about. That's the name of the game, right? Get what you want in life and make it as likely as possible. All right, that's it. That's all I got, guys. So now, if you have questions, now's the time. So you can raise your hand, or you can do the little Zoom hand raising thing. You can type it in the chat, whatever works. Julie.
I don't have a question specifically, but I did have an experience that I kind of wanted to share with you.
Yeah.
As many of you know, I live in Atlanta, and traffic in the city of Atlanta is hell. It's horrible. I live on the south side of town, and every Sabbath I get together with a group on the north side of town, and was hanging out with my tribe, with my witches, and after spending time with them, I was just flying so high, and I wasn't even thinking about traffic on the way home, but all the traffic to the left of me was stopped. All the traffic to the right of me was stopped, but I was vibrating at such a high frequency that my lane of traffic just went right through it all and blew it all away. It was amazing.
That's fantastic. See, and that's a really good example of one of the ways that you can use this, because it starts to become automatic when you're constantly operating at that level of excitement, right? And one way you can do this, and I recommend everyone do this every day. Thank you for reminding me, Julie. Use magic to get a good parking spot. Right? Use magic to get where you're going on time. Little things, little everyday things. That's a great way to keep yourself excited about this. Lala, how are you?
How are you doing?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
Good. I just have a quick thing to kind of support something you said earlier. I had a twin sister, most of everybody knows, and we would used to put a piece of table tray, you know, those old dinner trays you put between us, and we would each look at a crayon and we'd guess the color. Mm-hmm. And it would start out, because you're excited. I mean, we were only 8 or something. We would get 50-50, which is statistically impossible. 50-50 on a box of crayons. And the longer that we did it, the less accurate we were, because you're a child and you're getting bored. And they've done scientific studies with people that have some kind of ESP, that they start out good, and the longer they do it, their score goes down. So absolutely, that's that information.
It really, really, really is. And so that's really the name of the game, is staying engaged with this, which is incredibly hard. By the way, if you're like me and you have ADHD, like a tremendous amount of people, right? Staying excited about something is difficult, because you get really excited about something and you get really bored really fast. So we've got to be counteracting that in order to stay consistent with our magic. Kelly.
So where do you think raising energy or entering a trance state falls on the list, or do you think that's important?
It's incredibly important. That is in a different lecture that we'll do it next week or something, and that's on magic ritual. So entering an altered state of consciousness is incredibly important when doing ritual work, but it's not necessary for magical work. It is incredibly helpful to magical work, and again, that's a separate lecture, so we will get to that. Shama. Shama, you're muted.
Yeah, I just realized that. Thanks. I just wanted to say you actually they mentioned operative magic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the focus, the excitement, and obviously when you want to do something without actually doing the proper work within yourself to be at peace within yourself and rise your vibration to be able to achieve your goal, there is also the action that comes in it.
Mm-hmm.
And the shadow work I found is very much important. The more you work on yourself, the more the magic comes naturally, like a second nature. And it comes stronger as well, I've noticed.
Yeah, and so shadow work is removing the subconscious blocks, removing that guilt and that shame, facing the things that you have within you that you're denying, that you're shoving down, that are getting in your way, that you're unaware of. It's incredibly important to getting really, really good at magic. Okay, there's a lot of things like I said, this lecture is just scratching the surface of everything it takes to be really, really good at magic. Removing those blocks, that's a lifelong process for everybody because they come back also, right? You could think that, oh, I've dealt with that, and then all of a sudden, oh my god, it's back and it's worse than ever. It's okay, that kind of thing happens, but you're definitely correct in that, facing all of your inner reality and getting it to become harmonious is going to make your outer reality harmonious as well, because and we didn't even get to this today, but one of the real big secrets of magic is that your outer reality is just a reflection of your inner reality. That's all it is. Okay. Your exterior reality, and this is not a metaphor, your exterior reality is a mirror reflecting your inner reality. You do not live in the subjective environment that you think you live in. This is all hallucination. It's completely made up by the same part of your brain that you dream with. That's not to say that it's not real. It's as real as it gets, but as real as it gets isn't real, because baseline reality is electromagnetic energy in a vacuum. Okay. Nothing is actually solid. We have an experience of a solid reality because our brain tells us it's solid, but we know if you look at particle physics that everything is made up of 99.9% empty space, and they're made up of atoms with more distance between the atoms than the mass of the atoms. So everything is made up of nothing. It's a hallucination. But that hallucination is informed by your inner state, right? And now we're getting into more advanced magic, but yeah, you're 100% correct, Shauna.
Thank you.
Lala, go
Structure.
ahead.
So
I can't remember how to put my hand up, and I'm not going to look right now. So my question is for you, because of what Shama was just saying. And I used to be of this mind, and I have tried not to be because I know it limits me. There are times when you go, oh, I'm not in the proper mind frame to do magic. And I used to be of this belief. What is your belief? Do you have to have a certain mindset to do magic, or can you just get on with it? Just
You
do
can
it.
just get on with it. It's just that, but if you keep your mindset in a really, really good, healthy place, you're going to have better results. But let's say you're not in that really good, healthy place. How are you going to get there? Right? You still use magic to help you get there, and you can still have incredible results. Because here's another thing that I'll say, okay, and this is not ideal, but sometimes it's necessary. Desire. We talked about desire. Desire is the best way to generate magic, but you can also generate it out of desperation, and you can generate magic out of absolute need, as long as the belief is also there, right? You have to believe it will work, at least to some degree, or it's not gonna. But, and I've done this a number of times. There are times in life when you are absolutely fucking desperate and things are not going well for you and you're in a horrible state of mind. You should still do magic. Absolutely. You should still be doing it. You should do it every day for everything. All right. Any more questions, guys? All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this lecture. It was a lot of fun. We'll do another one in the very near future. We appreciate all of you. Really, really good to see a lot of you. And yeah, have a great night.